The year is 2015. 9-year-old me is not in the coaster community yet, and I had a mild interest because of a reading challenge from Six Flags at school, but nothing like I do today, and I was prepping for the movie event of the summer. Yes, I was introduced to Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit with Sharknado 3. In 2006, Universal Studios Japan, located in Osaka, announced Hollywood Dream the Ride, a B&M hypercoaster model. The ride would stand at a height of 144 feet, have a top speed of 56 miles per hour, and a total track length of 3,937 feet. The ride would feature many drops, camelbacks, and a helix for good measure. Its 2007 opening was seen as a success, increasing the park's income by 63%. One of the unique attributes compared to its other B&M Hyper counterparts was the on-ride audio, which let riders select a song to listen to while on the coaster. This is a concept that intrigued Universal Orlando, who planned to bring this concept to their flagship park, Universal Studios Florida. The leading rumor is that B&M was the go-to for the project, but they weren't able to, either because they were completely booked and wouldn't be able to finish the project in the timeline Universal wanted, or they simply did not want to leave their comfort zone, as Universal wanted a far more dynamic ride for the Orlando park. Regardless of the reasoning, B&M wasn't the manufacturer the park went with. Back in 2009, Intamin was not the powerhouse they are now, and their rides were far less reliable. In the past decade, they had debuted the problematic Strata roller coasters, King Dakar at Six Flags Great Adventure, and Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point, and would soon debut the failure that is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. Nowhere near the quality of what they would do with Universal in the late 2010s with Velocicoaster and Hagrid's at Islands of Adventure, so they just weren't on the table. Instead, Universal would go with Mauer and their X-Car model, which was introduced earlier in the decade. The model boasted many interesting qualities such as a beyond vertical lift, which released you into an inversion, and the nature of the smaller trains allowed for more dynamic and compact elements. Using 1 to 3 cars, and the wheel axles sitting closer to each other, allowed for tighter turns and maneuvers, as opposed to other coasters with more spread apart wheels and longer trains. The X-Car trains were also more accommodating for riders of all sizes, which back in 2009 was a much bigger deal than it is today. Looking at you, Mario Kart. While the model showed promise, it had many issues that still needed tweaking, but that wouldn't stop Universal from choosing it for the project. In 2008, Universal Orlando would file permits for a new coaster codenamed Project Rumble. This attraction would be placed in between several sound stages near the front of the park. The ride would also be accompanied by a new stage used for concerts and performances, which replaced the boneyard that once stood in its place. The contents, including the animatronic shark from Jaws: The Revenge, all being scrapped. A few months later in 2009, Universal would announce Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, standing at a height of 167 feet, having a top speed of 65 miles per hour, and a total length of 3,800 feet, featuring a vertical lift hill, a massive non-inverting loop, and what was claimed to be the greatest non-inverting roller coaster ever built. The ride was scheduled to open months before the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal's Islands of Adventure, the idea being that this new attraction would keep people coming to the studio's park. But unfortunately, Rip Ride Rockit's issues that would plague the ride for its entire life began to show immediately. Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit would suffer several manufacturing defects while under construction. Many track sections did not align, so Universal would have to re-weld them on site. The ride was originally proposed to open with a dual chain lift instead of an anti-rollback system, which is industry standard. The dual chain would allow for the ride to be lowered back into the station in the event of an evacuation, and the chains would act as redundancies for each other. Anti-rollbacks would not allow for this because of a device on the train which locks onto the hooked parts of the anti-rollbacks on the track, keeping it from rolling backwards down the lift. Trains can only progress forward with this device. Rip Ride Rockit's lift would be constructed with only one chain and no anti-rollbacks. The ride would begin testing, and then have the entire lift removed so anti-rollbacks can be added, but because the ride wasn't originally designed with them in mind, the device on the train would collide with the track throughout the layout, and further modifications were needed to lock it in an upward position. Rockit was likely to valley in the first section following the non-inverting loop in high winds, but it was also likely to overspeed and shut down the entire ride in the same section in warm weather. The timing in each block zone was off, making operations with the promised 7 trains nearly impossible. After numerous delays, Universal would preemptively open Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit on August 19, 2009, and the issues continued to pile. The promised capacity was not possible at opening. and the coaster was down to half of its 7-train fleet. The moving loading station was not utilized, leading to slower dispatches. Guests would suffer through these difficulties to ride an insanely rough attraction due to the heavy speakers and camera equipment, as well as the experimental trains and the wheel axles not sitting flush on the track. The ride was incredibly shaky. All of these problems were on top of the already mentioned weather issues. Rip Ride Rockit could allegedly only operate in winds of 15 miles per hour in cold weather and 25 miles per hour in warm weather due to its lighter trains. King Dakar, the former world's tallest roller coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure, which nearly triples the height of Rip Ride Rockit, was able to run in wind speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. If this is a lot of information to take in, that's because it is. And I want to give everyone a quick brain break. If you want a more in-depth breakdown of all of Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit's issues, I would recommend El Toro Ryan's nearly hour-long video on it. While my video is more of a quick rundown of the ride's history and my thoughts of it, Ryan's video dives into the more technical aspects of it in better detail than I ever could. I need to credit his video for much of the information on the ride in this video. His analysis videos are some of the best in the community, and I cannot recommend his channel more than I already have. I also want to plug this playlist with videos where I explain roller coaster terms. I know I have a fair amount of viewers who aren't familiar with anti-rollbacks, block zones, or any of those technical terms. I will leave small explanations in videos such as this one, but I'll save the bigger explanations for those standalone videos. I hope you're enjoying the video so far, and if you can like and comment your thoughts on Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, it would really help with pushing this video out there in the YouTube algorithm. With that being said, brain break over, let's dive back into Rockit. Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit was equipped with several block zones, sections of controlled ride track that keep trains from colliding. This is what allows roller coasters to run multiple trains. Universal had begun experimenting on several of the trains in an attempt to make the ride smoother and more reliable. Unfortunately, because of this, these 9 block zones were not timed perfectly, making the ride's full capacity nearly impossible. Overspeeding trains would catch up to slower trains too quickly, leading to stops and eventual ride breakdowns. The ride had issues in the rain where water would get into the phones and the restraints, which weren't waterproof, but this was fixed with another rain incident where a heavier train slipped through the final brakes and bumped another train, leading the ride to never operate in rain again. Following an incident in 2013 where the ride needed to be evacuated from its vertical lift hill after a system shutdown, Universal would add brakes on the first drop to purposely valley the trains in any similar event. These brakes would not engage during the ride and only during these rare situations. Evacuation from a vertical lift hill of any kind is challenging and not ideal. If the ride opened with its planned dual chain lift, it could have been lowered back into the station, but with the addition of the anti-rollback devices, this was not possible. But the brakes on the drop was a neat fix by Universal. There was also an issue with the ride experience where Universal would drastically cut down on the song choices. By the last 2 years of its life, only 6 were available. If you knew about the secret song list, this honestly wasn't a problem, but for the average guest, it was incredibly limited. While Universal would do all in its power to keep the ride operational, in the last third of its life, they started looking to replace it, leading to the decrease in song choices, removal of the iconic banner after Hurricane Helen hit the resort, and end of in-house modifications on the trains. In January 2025, Universal would file permits for the removal of Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, later confirming its closure to be, and giving about 8 months for fans of the coaster to get their final rides. Something that should be industry standard, especially for the prices we pay for parks, but that's a topic for another day. I was originally not planning to go to Florida until Epic Universe died down a little bit in a few years, but hearing of Rockit's closure, I had to make a trip this year. After a very chaotic planning process, I landed in Orlando on July 15th, and I would get the chance to ride Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit 10 times over my 2 days at both studios and Islands of Adventure. I rode listening to all the standard music choices, but my go-to pick would be from the secret song list, song 711, Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit's entrance was in this corner of the park, wedged between the Despicable Me building and the stage that opened with it. You'd walk up and use a free locker to store your stuff. The line has metal detectors and you could take nothing with you. I appreciate the free lockers, it's bare minimum, but it's becoming increasingly rare in this industry, and Universal is great at providing them when needed. You would then choose one of 3 lines: Express Pass furthest to the right, Single Rider in the middle, and Standby on the left. My go-to was Single Rider. These type of lines are very convenient and I wish more parks had them. It gets more riders on the trains and it helps people who don't have a preference of seating get on quicker. I would not have gotten as many rides if not for this line. Anyway, most would use the standby line, where you would get some videos explaining the rules of the ride, how to choose your song, and how the moving platform works. And you will hear it again and again and again.
Keep your head back against the seat while the ride is in motion. And please keep your head back against the seat while the ride is in motion.
Once you get to the station, you would be assigned a seat, although if it wasn't too busy, they would take row requests for the express pass and the standby line. You would then step onto the moving platform and load onto the train. An operator will check your restraint, and you are free to choose your song. The ride had one option per genre as mentioned earlier, and if you wanted the secret song list, you would hold down the logo for about 10 seconds, and then enter the 3-digit number of the song. If you didn't pick fast enough though, the ride would choose one for you. Once the block is cleared, the ride would engage the vertical lift and the audio would kick in.
Hold on tight, baby, because we're taking you skyward. You ready to rock it?
I've got to say, while I've only been on a handful, vertical lifts are awesome, and Rip Ride Rockets might be my favorite. The music building up anticipation, as well as the seats being slightly angled back, making it feel like you're about to slip out, it was a rush every time I did it. The train would slow once it reached the top and slowly creep you over the drop. In the ride's early days, it used to just throw you over the top, but it was allegedly slowed down after complaints of heads smashing into the restraint. Since that change, complaints had stopped. I would have loved to experience the drop before it was slowed down, but this one is still amazing. Once you disengage the lift, you hear the anti-rollbacks rip over the drop, which was extremely satisfying off-ride. And of course, the drop itself was excellent. While not a vertical drop, it was still steep enough to pack a punch. In the front, it was pretty good, but the ejector in the back was mind-blowing. Especially with the stadium style seating with the train, easily one of the best first drops in Florida. The train would then speed into the massive non-inverting loop, and this thing is breathtaking. You would get some decent positive G's ascending, and when the train would twist at the top, you would get some of the strongest and most sustained airtime on the ride, and in both parks. Most non-inverting loops are either forceless or the ride takes the element gracefully. Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit by far had the best one. It rips through this element and I will miss it dearly. The ride then rises into its first of many brake runs, rising into it with a ton of speed, giving some great airtime in all rows, but especially the front. The train then cruises through this first block zone before dropping into the next section. This drop delivers some weak floater in the front rows, but in the back you get a good pop of flowjector, before shooting out of the Ghostbusters firehouse into the treble clef turnaround. This is not like Fury's, which does it in one swift turn. Rip Ride Rockit starts out with some gradual banking and then rises up halfway through, getting much tighter with the turn and featuring an overbank before diving down towards the ground, and then rising into the next brake run. The whole sequence of elements comes really close to topping the non-inverting loop for me. The drop is great as mentioned, and the near miss with the building adds a lot to the moment. The actual turnaround packs in a lot of positive G's. Across my 10 rides, I would gray out by the time I reached the overbank at the top. The ride just hauls through this and doesn't feel like it loses speed at all. It's not quite on the level of some of the best helixes like Titan at Six Flags Over Texas or Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia, but it is definitely one of my favorites. And of course, that crazy pop of airtime into the mid-course got me every single time. It was easily one of the strongest on the ride. You roll through the second mid-course and enter the weakest section of the ride, this little return trip past the non-inverting loop. It starts with a shallow drop turning to the left. The ride just builds up speed before turning right, and then quickly banks left for this twisted airtime hill. It gives some solid floater overall. The train continues to turn left past the station into this overbank turn. The overbank was one of the strangest and most memorable parts of the ride. It's nothing like the overbank on Millennium Force at Cedar Point, or Mr. Freeze at both Six Flags Over Texas and St. Louis. Those rides have the train speed through the overbanks, leading to some great positive G's at times. Rip Ride Rockit's overbank is taken fast enough where it isn't boring, but slow enough where you get some sideways hang time. It's most comparable to the outer banked turn on El Loco at Adventure Dome. You just slide to the edge of your seat. It was a nice change compared to the rest of the ride, and it managed to throw in some hang time without inverting the train. You rise into another mid-course, getting some strong ejector entering it, glide through, and then drop into a low to the ground section. The drop didn't offer much, maybe some weak floater in the back row. The train would then twist and turn, entering this little twisted bunny hill. It delivered some some weak floater, and then the train would enter another great element, the inclined loop. If you've done an inclined loop like the ones on the B&M stand-ups Green Lantern and Riddler's Revenge, or Iron Menace at Dorney Park, you would have a decent idea how this would ride. It packed in a lot of positive G's, and it was almost a guaranteed gray out every time I rode it. And to top that off, you'd enter the final mid-course at such a strange angle, continuing to bank left as if you're entering another inclined loop, and then quickly flattening out into the mid-course. This was easily the most powerful ejector airtime on the entire ride, and probably the strongest pop in the entire resort. When exiting the mid-course, you enter a steep little drop which yanks you over the back. You pass by a small bunny hill with some weak floater, and then speed into the final brake run, giving another wild pop of ejector and ending the ride. The train then enters the loading platform again, and you exit to the right, where you could collect your items, purchase pictures, or hop back in line at the bottom of the staircase. Overall, Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit offered a dynamic and never dull experience, combining strong forces with a unique catalog of music choices. I loved all 10 of my rides on Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, and it comfortably sits at 56 out of my 252 roller coasters, above rides such as Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City, Incredible Hulk next door at Islands of Adventure, and Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point, but below rides such as Talon at Dorney Park, Colossus at Lagoon, and Thunderhead at Dollywood. And in terms of my now defunct coasters, it only ranks below King Ka and Green Lantern at Six Flags Great Adventure. Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit would hold its final day of operation on August 17th, 2025. Despite several weather delays, it was able to ride off with a proper farewell from fans of the ride. Universal would have the original characters from the ride queue walking around greeting people, recommending secret songs, and giving out farewell guitar picks exclusively for riders on the final day. There are rumors of what could replace the ride. An Intamin spinning coaster similar to Hollywood Drift at the California park is one of the top options, as well as an Intamin vertical launch coaster. The theme has been pinned down to either Fast and Furious or Ghostbusters, with a lot of the work being done near the firehouse. I would personally love to see Ghostbusters, but I know Universal will cook up something amazing regardless and exceed all expectations as they usually do. They did it with Dueling Dragons, what looked like to be an amazing dueling inverted coaster by B&M, replacing it with Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure, one of the most impressive coasters ever built from both a technical and ride perspective. And I have no doubt that whatever's coming will be a worthy replacement and a much better ride overall. Something mixing the thrills of Velocicoaster and the storytelling of Hagrid's would be amazing for this park, and could hopefully be a step to bring it back to its former glory, but only the future could tell what will come. For a ride that had such a rocky start and problematic run at the park, Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit went out with a bang. It created memories for many people around the world, some positive, those who will miss the ride dearly, and many negative, those who are happy to see it go. It was a staple of the Universal Orlando Resort, and the skyline will forever be changed without it. The legacy it leaves is one of an era of Universal that has long passed. It leaves joyful and painful memories alike, but for me, the most vivid memory will always be of Sharknado 3.